Gav, man, thank you. I was muted the whole damn time. Wow. Okay, that's a good way to start. I did not realize that. Gav, man, you the real MVP. You the real MVP. Appreciate you. Um, yeah, that was not supposed to happen that way. So I just had that whole little rant. I guess I'll start off the rant all over again. Um, okay. Uh, oh shit. Um so yeah, like I said, we're gonna continue with our state property tax exemptions for our workshop this week. We'll first state it'll be Kentucky and we'll continue down the line from there. But like I said, I wanted to get started talking about the changes that are happening within the military or at least within the army. I'm not sure if people know who Army What the Fucks is. It's a Facebook group that basically posts just like I said, funny memes, funny messages, funny stories, interesting stories, or stories that need to be looked into, policies that are being created or policies that are being pushed out that are erroneous or basically illegal to push out. Um, so that site, I was watching, I was scrolling through Facebook earlier today, and I saw that it was Fort Cavazos, which is now or formerly known as the Great Place, formerly known as Fort Hood, was actually going out. Hey, Military Mike, thanks for tuning in. Um, I noticed that it was. They said basically that this new barracks soldiers are gonna be welcomed in with new furniture, new appliances, new like just new room furniture. And it was just like this like PFC standing all proud and shiny and smiling. And it's just like you look at it and I was just like, why did it take this long? It took for the sergeant majors of each branch to go to Congress to speak on these issues. It took them that long for them to actually find something. Mind you, I served as a barracks manager before. We were in a building that was it was with the CAV. We were the CSSB. We were joint in there. So we had the second floor was mostly ours, basically to keep it that way. We didn't have CQ. So when I gripe about there being charge of quarters and all that nonsense, I think it's dumb because the thing is if you have people that are actually taking care of themselves and are professional and are disciplined, as you know the military has a discipline issue. It goes into the fact that it's just like I had to look into the barracks and I had an issue where on our floor we had our washing machine, right? So we had what was one, two, five dryers, five washers. From those five dryers and those five washers, it was supposed to be on each side. Basically, for the second floor, they were supposed to provide that. That's how we washed our clothes and stuff like that. I lived in that building for let's say I'll give you what 3 years almost, going on 4 years. I lived in that building, and we had one and a half working washing machines and two dryers that worked. Mind you, out of five. Me as the barracks manager, I submitted the information at least a year prior, basically saying like, "Hey, we need new washers and dryers. We only have two for about 30 something plus people here." I was just like, and the first answer I got was, "Well, y'all just need to figure out when to do laundry." Okay, that was my first response. Then I actually went and I kept on digging because I was like, I'm not gonna take that for an answer. It was just like we're supposed to have washers and dryers. You always say it's a discipline issue or it's a problem with soldiers not having clean clothes or people smelling funky or whatever the case may be. But it's just like I asked for washers and dryers as a barracks manager, and y'all told me y'all just need to figure out a schedule for it. So it took the sergeant majors of the army of each or the sergeant majors of each branch to basically get something done by going to Congress and be like, hey, we need more pay, we need better facilities, this, and that. But it was just like, why did y'all wait for Congress to come at y'all for that? I was just like, y'all been known this is an issue. The army has had mold issues in its barracks for who knows how long and across how many duty stations. Basically, because they're cheaply made. Most of those barracks are not the best of made. They don't have good air circulation, so you have the mold stuck in there. And then the problem also is that you would have leaders that would just say, "Oh, what was it? Half part bleach, half part water." I believe what was the ongoing saying for when it came to cleaning bleach off your walls, or paint over it. Um, so those issues were there and they've been there, but it's just like, where was the accountability coming towards? Because now all of a sudden there's funding for it. You've had funding. The bed I was on, I literally bought my own mattress to put on top of the mattress I had because of how old the mattress was that I had in my room. So I could only imagine how long it actually was for all those beds to actually be changed out, or when's the last time they were changed out? Because certain beds you're supposed to change out every couple of, I would say every couple of years. If you're a service member and you go to Germany, you're at least there for 3 years, minimum 3 years. Unless something happens, you get shipped out earlier. That's different, but that's 3 years. So that mattress had at least been there for somebody else for 3 years before I moved into that building, or maybe 3 years more than that, or maybe 3 more years after that. Because it wasn't like it was comfortable mattresses. It was like a little thin ass mattress, which probably leads to how we have all these back issues, uh, neck issues, because of sleeping on some terrible ass mattresses. But that took a congressional hearing to take care of. So, what have all these leaders been doing when it comes to it? And that's why it's like it it bothers me because then we talk about VA claims. Then when we tie it into the VA claim, it's like, okay, so we have this issue, y'all. We have the issue that I guess we're low on funding, or we don't have funding, or we have funding, we're just not going to spend it on that. But we need new mattresses, we need new furniture, we need new washing machines, we need new dryers. Because a lot of the times what they do is, what I learned as a barracks manager is that they just refurbish those items, which is perfectly fine as long as they work, right? But if you're refurbishing something, a washing machine that's just like old. The shit is just like falling apart. And then you basically change out one part, but the other parts are still failing. And then you put it back and then it fails again. And then it's another 6 to 8 month issue to get that changed. Why didn't we just purchase a new one? And then people would just be like, it's the funding. It was like, no, they have funding. There's funding. There's always funding. The units have funding also. The units have their own funding. The other issue that's come out with that is the BAS, the food allowance, where um another one through Army What the Fucks and on Army Times, they talked about how service members were not being given a chance to actually purchase or eat the food that they're requesting. And that came from a chaplain. So when a chaplain is making news talking about, hey, these people are not being accommodated for their religious beliefs or whatever the case may be, or are not being given the food and it's being requested, but the money's still being taken out of their check, that's an issue. So it's like you could take the money out of a soldier's check, but you can't take money out of certain parts of the army to make sure that that soldier's okay. So how do we fix that? Like that's the issue that we keep on going with. Is just like you have issues within the military that are not being taken care of at that first level, because everything is it's first level. Always take it to your first supervisor, first level, whatever the case may be. But then it doesn't go nowhere because it's always frowned upon within the military. Like, hey, you shouldn't be going outside of the organization to get something fixed. I was like, well, if I've been dealing with a washer and dryer that has not been fixed for over a year plus, and it just sits there, and it sat there with water sitting in it, which that water, I don't know, that water probably still sitting in there because I don't even think they've changed those washing machines and dryers since I left. I've been gone for 2 years now, basically. So that leads into the fact that it's just like, yes, these buildings are old. If anybody here served in Germany and they got on Camp Aachen on Grafenwehr, if you're a rotational soldier now going through those places, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bathrooms is terrible. The buildings look like they're about to fall apart. They're constructing something. They were constructing new buildings, but I think it was more housing instead of actually barracks for those personnel. You have an ongoing rotational basis now going to Germany, going to Poland, and they station at Grafenwehr because that's the closest one to get closer to Poland or to Romania or whatever location they're going to, whether Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. Um, you have all those locations, but nothing is being done to actually fix the living circumstances of those people. Like I understand, yeah, field environment when you're in the field. You should not be in a field environment when you are in garrison. That shit makes no sense. I was you shouldn't have. It's like I know you trying to train people, train as you fight, but you should not be resting in a beat up home or a beat up apartment or a beat up little room that doesn't have what you need. If your stove ain't working, you can't have a toaster oven, but you can drive $1 million vehicle. Which is understandable because not all soldiers are built the same. I understand that. But we've been running this military organization thing for quite some time now. And it's 2024. Now, in order for you to burn something in the barracks, it's just like, okay. But then it's also paying attention to that soldier. Now, is that soldier able to take care of himself? Do you know? Are you doing barracks checks to do it? Are you actually mentoring or tutoring or developing these soldiers to let them know and say, hey, maybe this guy just doesn't know how to cook. Maybe we could teach him how to cook. Let's do a little class. Like I remember doing that. Just a little bullshit classes. Like, hey, little finance thing. He was like, hey, make sure you put money in your TSP. Make sure you got money in your savings that you do not touch. Have some money to play around with, and then have an emergency fund on top of that. Something you just tell your soldiers. Just so that, hey, if you want to take that advice, you could take it and you'll be better off in the long run for it. But then sometimes you're not. But then the military is like, hey, we're going to take care of you. Family first. Because that's what we changed to, I believe. Or at least that was the army. Or was that the military until? I don't know. So that's why it's interesting for me because it's just like the military does this. It took a congressional hearing of the sergeant majors of these branches to start making changes, to make a notation of this. And it's more like, hey, we're losing out on retention. Hey, sergeant majors, what the fuck is going on? Why are we losing people? Why are we not gaining people? What? Why is it so hard to continue to grab people up? Like we were making numbers, no issue. Then all of a sudden it's just like it's going on what? This will be probably like year 3, year 4 that we don't make the retention numbers because people are just getting out. Situations are just getting worse. And I will still say it was COVID. COVID did that shit to everybody, but people don't want to acknowledge it. COVID changed a lot for the military and it changed a lot for just people in general. But all that stuff, like I said, leads to becoming a veteran. At the end of the day, all those service members, those are majors also, are going to be a veteran. They can't serve for the rest of their life. They're not going to serve till 70, even though some of them push damn near 60 probably when they try to retire. But you can't do this forever. You're going to have to become a veteran. You're going to have to file a disability claim. And then, like we were talking about before with the medical workshop, is how is mold put into this? How is the lack of good working furniture put into this? How is the lack of being able to wear clean clothes and not having a funky smell that you keep on inhaling deal with? You get told to put bleach or paint it over, the mold is still there. The mold still continues to grow back. You have people that have been living in these conditions for 3 years at a time. Now, unless it's like super bad, I don't think you're not gonna die off of it right away. But over time, that takes a toll on somebody's body when it comes to you developing mold inside. So it was just interesting to see that it just took now, like, oh, the army. And the thing is like what bothers me the most, and I think what people are failing to realize and what the army's failing to realize, at least on the army's perspective, is that yeah, doing this dog and pony show. And the problem is that us as military service members, we deal with it, we understand it. The dog and pony show is not being understood by the civilian side. And that's where I think the military needs to do a better job when it comes to their public affairs thing, because they're not doing a great job of that. Because the thing is you hear about, oh, this and that, and then you just throw that one picture of that soldier. I got new furniture, and it's just like, okay, you got new furniture. Who else got new furniture? This seems to be a whole military issue, unless you're in the Air Force. Clearly, the Air Force. Look, I'll put it like this: when I heard that the Air Force got an extra check when they were residing in Army lodging, I knew we were fucking up. That to me alone was the biggest thing I've ever seen. That you get a stipend for living in a location that's still military, but it's a different branch, but it doesn't live up to your standards. Now you see why Air Force doesn't have that much of an issue, probably retention wise. They don't have as many people though, which is understandable. But their people probably want to stay because they live in better conditions. Now, Army, you don't live in those conditions. Navy, probably the same. Coast Guard, probably not the same. Not sure. But that's what I'm saying. I don't know the experience from the other branches, so that's something I want to have conversations with other branch members to say like, hey, okay, this is the issue that's going on. This is what we're dealing with. These are the people here. This is what's happened in this location. This is how it happened in my branch. Because I don't know how all the branches operate. All the branches operate differently. They go about things in a different way. Each one of them has their own DOD forms, um, Department of Navy, Department of, like they have their own stuff. So they have all the documentation is the same, isn't the same. So it's not like a clear cut example for everyone. The Army has its issues, it has its forms. Like I said, medical profiles, DA 3349. That's Department of the Army form. I don't know what it is for the Navy and stuff like that. And I think that's something that probably should be changed so that overall across the board, everybody has the same form. You go to a doctor. Just because you go to one thing doesn't change your diagnosis. So why not have the same form across the board? And I think that's what changes. That's what I think makes the military and veterans more uneasy is that everything is different in each branch. And as a veteran, you have certain things like a disability claim is a disability claim. That's notwithstanding, that doesn't change for anybody. The issue is the forms that are used within that. You have your documentation in one form, even though it's the same documentation as somebody else, but you have it in different forms. So I can't go to a Navy person and be like, "Hey, man, what's your profiles looking like?" And they're gonna be like, "What's a what form is that?" And I'll be like, "DA 3349," and they'll look at me like I'm crazy, and they'll try to look up something like that. I was like, "We don't got that." So it's like, but it's the same thing. If you get on a profile, I believe everybody in each branch gets on a profile for something at some point. Shit, if you get a shaving waiver, you get a shaving profile. But that's one thing I also don't understand is like when people say shaving profile, is it a shaving profile because of the army, because it's a profile you receive, or is it a waiver as all the other branches tend to mention it? So those are things that is just like you don't get to, how can you put it? You don't get to understand and you don't get to see because you're not able to comprehend everybody's branch because everybody's branch is different. So it's like they keep us all separated, but when it comes to filing a VA claim, you all fall under the same boat. But the thing is all of us cannot work with each other to get us to that location where we need to get, which is to file a VA claim or have that information that's pertinent to you, but may not look the same for someone else, even though it's the same exact thing. So that's where it's like the army needs to do better, the military needs to do better when it comes to that, just to be able to help veterans because we're all over the place. Information isn't the same. I know how it was going through the Soldier for Life program or SFL TAP or however they want to rename it. The multiple times, still the same outcome where soldiers are not well prepared to get out of the military. How does that work on the other branches? Because the thing is I know it's an issue with the army sometimes where soldiers are not afforded the time to get those classes in order to do it. I just saw also not too long ago that they spoke on getting more resources and creating more resources for those programs to get better. So basically another pilot program or another study which is going to take another 3 to 4 years to figure out how they can fix these issues with those transitional classes. And the thing is like at the same time in those 3 to 4 years you're going to have a lot of people getting out of the military, veterans that don't have the information, don't have the correct information. It's taking out this long to figure out why it is such an issue. Then we go to the VA side. You have a backlog of so many veterans. Like I said, we have 19 million veterans currently within still living and breathing. 19 million veterans across the world because people start living and moving around different places. Um, Out of those 19 million, I think it's only like about 5 million. But that was from the research that happened in 2021, I believe. So I don't know how that's changed and how those numbers look after the PACT Act. The PACT Act has caused a lot of people to increase the amount of people that have filed, but we still don't know how many. I don't think that number is readily available, or do they have it like stored somewhere like for somebody to look at like, okay, this many people filed for the PACT Act. Now, how many of those people were actually brand new personnel that had never filed a VA claim before? And how many of those were people that already had a claim, already had issues, and were trying to service connect them to actually say, like, hey, I've had this issue? Because that's another problem, that service connection. You had all those people that burn pits, all that stuff, dealing with stuff. It wasn't service connected before. Now with the PACT Act, it was service connected. So I don't know if y'all know any veterans that did y'all get a, because I know they said you would get back paid till August of 2022. But if you've been dealing with this issue since like 2000, let's say 10, that you've been battling to try to get this service connected, don't you think they should be getting back paid till 2010? Because you basically said they didn't have anything, but now with the PACT Act, they changed it. So that's one thing I also had a question about, and I don't know. We'll look into it. Um, we'll see if somebody has that answer, but I need to get with the senator, see if I can get. I'm gonna try to get him on a podcast episode. Be interesting just to ask him some questions, see his way forward or his way thinking, just to see what the Senate committee is talking about when it comes to veteran affairs. Because I have some insight and I have some things I would like to say, or things I should think should be changing or looked across. But I think it's something that across the board we need to fix. We need to fix the military branches when it comes to living conditions, which they are doing an effort and they're working on it. Got it, understood. I appreciate it. Um, can't say more to that. I was like, they're working on it. I've heard that before. Uh, the thing is let's try to hold them accountable to that. Yeah, y'all making these changes, yeah, putting new furniture, new appliances, whatever the case. Let's make sure we stay on top of that. Let's not make it that it's gonna be another 5 years before somebody asks, like, hey, did those soldiers get that new washer? Or did they get new mattresses? Because if you've been in the barracks and you've stayed there for 3 years and you moved out and that mattress hasn't been changed out, that's a problem. There should be a new mattress every time somebody moves in and out. At least that's how I feel. If you're gonna be there for 3 years, those mattresses should have a shelf life, which I've never seen anybody create anything like that. As a barracks manager, they should have a shelf life. 3 years. Hey, this person's leaving. We can switch it out, put a new one. It's different being over in Germany because you're overseas. But if you're in the States, you got enough mattress places here, enough things that you could do something, work something out with the community itself. Because you got all these communities that there's a community around it. Most of these communities look like they beat up, and the military doesn't do anything to help them fund. Like, you can make businesses better by working with the military while they're around there. Besides the fucking dealerships that are getting these soldiers for fucking 29% fucking APR on a fucking Camaro or a Charger or shit. Even a beat up hoopty car that they still get 29% interest rate on. It's like, all those situations and all those issues and stuff that people don't realize that need to be done something about, something needs to be done with in order to change it, because otherwise we're just going to be stuck in the same thing and it's just going to continue that cycle that doesn't get better. You don't really want veterans on disability. That I think is what the army or the military would want. Shit, the government would probably want that. You don't want people falling apart afterwards, because then the thing is how do they contribute to society after that? If you have somebody that's severely disabled, somebody that has severe back problems, severe knee problems, um, ends up with respiratory thing, that's a person that doesn't work for society anymore. That person's taking care of themselves. They're looking out for themselves. They're trying to not work or they can't work because of the disability. So it's like we need to do better and find the root cause, which I was talking about that in class. We had a little session where it was called what a wicked problem is. And a wicked problem is a problem that continues to have issues, even though you can find a solution for one, it springs up another issue somewhere else. And it's like that's what we have right now with veterans, which that's gonna be another episode. Um just as to how do we fix that wicked problem that is the military and the veterans issue, because we have people that we have the same ongoing issues continuously. We don't find the root cause of it. Is it time and service? Is it lack of training? Is it lack of resources? Is it the VA not giving the shit? Is it that they don't want to help people? Or what is the root issue as to why we have so many veterans that don't get their benefits awarded or approved, or have so many veterans that need claims to be approved? So that's something that I think we need to look into. But that was just wanted to get that out there. Just wanted to talk on that for a bit, because it's something that's important to talk about. And I think the more we start talking about it, the more chances we have of actually fixing stuff. Because like I said, there's issues still within the military that we haven't learned about, we haven't been able to teach people about, and we haven't spoken to people about, that has caused even more issues. Like I said, if I've been living in mold for 3 years, that's gonna affect me down the road. How can I prove that? How can I service connect that? How can I say yes, I lived in a building that had mold for the whole time I lived in it? There's no army record for that. Now it's like, hey, we made sure to give you new furniture. We'll have a note of that when you received all that new stuff, but we ain't gonna put that it was we cleaned out the mold, or we renovated it, changed out the air system, or renovated it entirely. Because I know they did that in Hawaii. In Hawaii, they did that to one of those barracks. It was one of those quads. They moved the unit out of it, moved it into another one, had everybody there, and they were renovating it. They were gutting the building, doing new AC, new all that stuff. And that was before all this issue was happening, but it was Hawaii. So, it gets hot, humid. You don't get that circulation well, so the mold does grow there. So that one was understandable, but that was without the necessity of a congressional hearing. So is it that we need congressional hearings to get everything done, or do we need to do congressional hearings just to hold people accountable to make sure it's getting done? I don't know. We'll keep on checking in on that. We'll keep on mentioning that, and we'll see how we improve that and how we get that better. All right. So we have the state. So back to the state property tax exemptions. We are here. Where are we at? We fall into Kentucky, and this is for the homestead exemption. Um, excuse me. This is the information basically we'll be looking at. This is for the state of Kentucky, which basically has a homestead exemption, which basically we'll go through it like we usually do, and we'll just make sure to highlight it, put it on the spreadsheet, try to put a little note on there so that people understand, like, hey, this is the exemption you get, this is why you get it. Like I said, not all states are created equally. The same way with this one. This spreadsheet, I completed it. I did a little stream on Thursday. I can't remember one of these days this past week, and it was just finalizing this. So basically, for each state VA health location, state VA urgent care location, or state VA emergency care locations, when you get the link, you could just click on it, and it'll take you to the search criteria on va.gov to find the information. And I do have a note on there that once you do that, like make sure to check and move the search bubble to an area that you are located in, or use my location. But this way, it's an easier way to just be able to find it. If you're already on the spreadsheet, you need to find a location. You can click on it, and it takes you right to it. Because that was something I think most people are not aware of, and a lot of people don't understand that there is a ton of information. There's a ton of information on va.gov. People don't know how to get to it. It's one of those links when you first get to it, but it's something that you need to know, and it's informational for you if you need to get seen. If Because this is all VA in network. If you go out of network, you have to deal with notifying the VA and doing all that stuff. So it's a whole different thing. So if you're going in network, you could at least do it in network, get that done, get taken care of, get looked at. Okay, so for the state of Kentucky, homeowners are at least 65 years of age who have been classified as totally disabled and meet other requirements. Assessed value of their home and their property tax liabilities computed on assessment remaining after deducting the exemption amount. Application based on age. We'll skip that because it's mostly for 65 years of age, which is how it is. Almost all states are like that. Um, One question I have is that when will that be updated also? Because the retirement age is going. I'm not saying to put that up higher. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is the years of living are like, I forget how you say it. It's not coming to mind. But how long people live basically changes. Now we're supposedly living longer. They're already talking about trying to increase retirement age and stuff like that. How does this affect these exemptions? Because, like I said, a lot of the exemptions we've looked over are old, need updating, only provide a little bit of assistance, which back when they first instituted these laws would be beneficial. But now, with the increase in housing market and housing prices, those benefits don't really do much. So it's just like keeping that in mind and trying to see what else can we do to actually help and assist veterans and actually update the time. Inflation has continued to grow. Pay has not. So it's just like how do we make sure that we get that information out to people? And like I said, that's something like veterans need to band together, talk to Congress, get with Congress to basically get this information out. So it's just like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we have, this is what you're gonna receive, this is how we're updating it to change it. Because COLA changes every year, and that's how we get an increase to our benefits. Why don't these follow that same practice? Just a question. If we're receiving a 8.7% COLA raise, why isn't the exemption receiving that same raise? Due to the fact that, hey, if you're saying that the cost of living has gone up by this amount, that means that these exemptions should go up by the same amount to actually balance out and weigh and give you the same benefit that you were receiving before without the cost of living going up. Another thing we need to just band together as veterans and get that process rolling. Like, hey, politicians, we need to make sure that if COLA's going up, our cost of living is going up, that our exemptions are also going up. Because it's not fair that your exemptions stay the same, but you're still not benefiting the same amount. See what I'm saying? Okay. Application is based on the disability of the homeowner. Then the homeowner must have been classified as totally disabled under a program authorized or administered by an agency of the United States government or any retirement system located within or outside of Kentucky, which that falls under the VA. Homeowner must apply annually to continue to receive the exemption based upon a disability, unless okay. So this is one of the benefits that Kentucky has. If they are a veteran of the United States Armed Forces and have a service-connected disability, so you do not have to do it annually. They have been determined to be totally and permanently disabled under the rules of the Social Security Administration. If you're filing for SSD also while being 100% disabled, you fall under that also. They have been determined to be totally and permanently disabled under the rules of the Kentucky retirement system. So there you go. So those are the criteria. But that is to make sure that you are not annually applying for it. So basically, once you are determined to be permanent and total, you apply for that the first time, you shouldn't have to apply for it again. Basically, let's hope so. But like I said, these are just the links that we have on the states. There's probably more in depth, and we'll look at that. We have this right here, homestead exemption notice for 2023, 2024. We'll look at that also. The value of the homestead exemption for the 2019-2020 assessment year was $39,000. This amount is deducted from the assessed value of the applicant's home, and property taxes are computed based upon the remaining assessment. For example, if the applicant's residence is assessed at $200,000, property taxes will be computed on $160,700. The amount of the homestead exemption is recalculated every 2 years to adjust for inflation. Okay, so the exemption is okay, so that's at least something. So Kentucky at least has it that the exemption continues to be reevaluated and adjusted for inflation. So at least this is the first state I've seen actually says that in their state, like, hey, we know inflation is going, your value is probably going up or may not, whatever the case, but we're doing it with inflation so that it keeps and it matches the amount. So, like I said, I guess see me talking about it earlier, this led us to this one, and this one explains it and says like, yes, we do that. We do pay attention to inflation. Um, not everybody does. Not everybody pays attention to inflation, so that's one thing that at least we know it's good. Kentucky homestead tax. Now, as we continue to do this later down the road, we will probably try to see if we can actually find the forms for this. But that will probably be something down the road where I make a tab. So this right now will just be an overall state breakdown where it has all that information. Then I will probably end up splitting it. Gwen, what's up? How you doing? Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you coming in. So that's something that down the road with the same form that people will have available, because that's another tab. I have apprenticeships here, the VA forms. um we can probably, well, that's VA forms. We'll probably have state forms that have like that, like state tax exemption forms, so that we have the exact form for every state. That way it's like, hey, if you need the exemption form for Alabama, boom, this is what you need to fill out, stuff like that. But that'll be down the road. Like I said, this is, we're trying to create this as we go, and work on it as best we can. But as of right now, $39,000 is the assessment. Put that there. 39,000. 39,000 exemption. Exemption. Inflation adjusted every 2 years. Because that's something I think that most states need to look into and need to do in order to do that. We'll look at this real quick, the homestead exemption notice for 2023, 2024, just to see what it says. Even though it's probably there. The Kentucky Department of Revenue has set the maximum homestead exemption at 46,000. See, okay. So this is now updated. So this is a notice basically saying, so now the exemption is 46,000 350. See, so that's what I was saying. So it's been 2 years since that last one, and now it's there. The exemption reflects a $5,850 increase over 2021 2022. So the last one prior to that was 2020. That's why we have presented many challenges. Together we have faced worldwide. See, so at least the state of Kentucky is a state that basically lets you know, like, hey, we know we're having issues. We know the world has been having issues. The states have been having issues. Let's make sure that everybody has everybody is correctly represented when it comes to this information, so that everybody knows, like, hey, yes, you have this issue. There's an ongoing issue we have. Inflation has been kicking everyone's ass. Let's make sure that we are passing that forward and adjusting our documentation to do that, which is, like I said, don't see many states doing this. Next one is Louisiana, and this is for 100%. But see, let me see if I can find property. Military exemptions. So with this one, let's see. So this one, we're just gonna look at it to try to get this one looked at just for the exemption. So this one actually gives you a breakdown on what it means. Kentucky does not tax active duty military. What? Okay then. So Kentucky does not tax active duty military pay. So if you're active duty in Kentucky, that's why people probably like to get stationed in Kentucky and stay in Kentucky, because you don't get charged. That's good to know. Did not know that. Subtract active duty military pay from income on your Kentucky return. Kentucky income tax is not required to be withheld from active duty military pay. You are considered a Kentucky resident for income tax purposes if your state of living is with the military is Kentucky. Interest in filing extensions, that's usually across the board. It's usually the same, where if you reside in a certain location, they're not going to charge you taxes, or outside of it. If you're in a combat zone, most of the time that's duty free. If you're outside of the states, it's tax free that you get that pay. So okay, so for retirees, if you live in Kentucky, 31,110 is what you are able to deduct from your pension and retirement income. So it's not that they don't fully tax it, it's just that they take away 31,110 of it that was taxed, basically as an exemption. So you can exclude that. Anything above that, that gets taxed on thing. Most states don't have that. Most states have it that you pay don't pay anything on it. So all right, so now we are at the state of Louisiana. Now, this one, as you can see, is very fine print, and man, do I hate looking at these. I like the ones that, at least give you the information, because with this, now I gotta search and look for it. I don't want to read all this, y'all. But that's the problem that I think with veterans we have. We don't read the stuff, so we need to make sure we're reading the stuff to find out what we need. The same way with the CFR. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 38, Chapter 1, Part 4, if I'm correct. Hey, Private.
Yes, Sergeant.
Provide chat, Code of Regulations.
Got you, Sergeant.
Okay, so it posted it. So that's our little bot that we have. That's what we're working on, just trying to enhance the bot. Uh The one issue I'm still having is that it's not providing the information on both sides. Um, because we are on mobile and we are on regular viewing capabilities, but it's only providing that stuff for the vertical. So going forward, the next iterations of the stream will basically become a one-sided thing. So we will not be doing the dual stream of streaming on the horizontal and the vertical. We'll probably just stick to just vertical for now, and then every now and then do a horizontal view, or vice versa, switch it up, and it'll be back and forth. I think with the mobile one, it's easier because it gives people a lot of access to it. Like if you're out and about, you're on a drive, you can tune in, just put it on there. You can't do that with a PC. You're not gonna plug in the PC to the car and start driving with it. So that's 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 what we'll do going forward. Foreign property and all this shall be exempt at environmental public lands and other public property, medical equipment. So okay, house services. Veteran. There we go. So nothing above. Here we go. In addition to the homestead exemption authorized pursuant to the provisions, which applies to the first $7,500 of the excess valuation of property, the next $2,500 of the assessed valuation of property receiving the homestead exemption that is owned and occupied by a veteran with a service-connected disability rating of 50% or more, but less than 70% by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs, shall be exempt from ad valorem taxation. The surviving spouse of a deceased veteran with a service-connected disability rating of 50% or more, but less than 70% of the property. Whether or not the exemption was in effect of the property prior to the death of the veteran, if property eligible for the exemption provided for this sub paragraph has an assessed value in excess of $10,000, ad valorem property taxes shall apply to the assessment in excess of $10,000. So basically, you get a $7,500 tax exemption overall for the state if you fall into the criteria. But if you're a veteran, you get another 2,500 on top. So in total, you would get $10,000. Like I said, $10,000 in taxes depending on the location you live at. If the property taxes have gone up and your house value has gone up, which for most places that's the case, the $10,000 doesn't do the same. Like I said, the adjustment of inflation, like the state of Kentucky does, is something that we need to make. That should be across the board. Certain things, certain benefits to veterans should be across the board. Now you have these exemptions, which understood, good, but at least each state have their own exemption. That's fine, but at least have them that they're across the board. Something is happening with all of them that all veterans receive that benefit. So, like I said, with inflation being adjusted every 2 years for Kentucky, it gets adjusted and it gets reevaluated every 2 years. That does not happen with, as you can see, Louisiana. Who knows when's the last time Louisiana did that? But they're only doing 10,000. Kentucky is doing 46,000. The state of Illinois does it depending on your percentage rate. So depending if you're like 30 to 50%, you get this amount. You get like how we have it right here for Illinois. You have the S spouse is basically, it does give the ability for your spouse, like the state of Louisiana does, that if you are a widow or a surviving family member, or from surviving spouse of a military member, you still can continue to use that exemption. It doesn't mention anything about the children though, and that's one thing that is just like, with certain ones, certain states they do have that. Certain states do not lay any mention to, but that's something that you need to look into further within the state to ask that question, because I don't think that's going to be in here. Okay, so we did that. So we got 10,000. In addition to the homestead exemption authorization authorized pursuant to the provisions of Section 20, which applies to the first seven, says value and occupied by shall be the surviving spouse. Is that just the same thing? With a service connectivity of 70% or more, but less than 100%. But okay, so it changes because of the percentage. So there's another state that has, depending on your disability rate, will change how you increase and how your exemption increases. 70% or more, less the next. So you start off, which applies to the first $7,500 of the assessed property. The next $4,500 of the assessment evaluation property owned and occupied by a veteran, if they are 70% or more, but less than 100%. Veterans affairs shall be eligible for the exemption of the surviving spouse. Same thing with the surviving spouse. So with this one, if you're between 70% and 100%, you get $12,000 removed. And then for the last one, in addition to the homestead exemption pursuant first 7,500, the remaining assessed valuation of property receiving the homestead exemption that is owned and occupied by a veteran with a service-connected disability rating of 100% unemployability or totally disabled by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs shall be exempt from ad valorem taxation. The surviving spouse, same thing. So we basically have the same, basically kind of like the same criteria as the state of Illinois, where depending on your percentage, that's how much you get. So if you are, what was it? If you are the, what was the percentage here? So 50%. So we'll do that again. So this does have the surviving spouse. So we have that. So if you are a surviving spouse, you still get that. But for this one, instead of it being, so I'll keep it like this, but I'll change it. So this is 50%. 50% gets you the 10,000. And less than 70. 70%. 70%, but less than, I'll put it as 99% because you're not at 100 or permanently disabled, gets you 12,000. And 100% gets you the full exemption. So basically, like I said, not every state is created the same way, but this one kind of falls into like how Illinois is. Um, they give you the same thing depending on the percentage of your disability rating. That is the percentage of exemption you get. With Illinois, it was 30 to 50% gives you 2,500, 50 to 70% gives you 5,000, and this one gives you 70 and plus in Illinois gets you fully exempt. With the state of Louisiana, it's you get $10,000 or the extra $2,500, which gets you to 10,000. Then the next one is 4,000, 4,500, which gives you to 12,000. But if you're 100%, you are fully exempt or totally disabled. So at least we have that. We have the law. This one has it there. Good thing we read that, huh? This is a homestead, or would they say homestead or property? Property. Property. So now you at least have it, and it's notated that you have the exemption for that. It does go, and it is a benefit that your surviving spouse does have. That it's stated in there. Like I said, most states might have that, but not all of them on their website. Like how we saw with Kentucky has that information direct and in plain sight for you to read as part of the law. Like I also said, some of them do mention that for their children. Not all do. Now we are Maine has what is NSC? I don't know what NSC is. Considered 100% due to non-service. So wouldn't that be TDU? I'm not sure what that means. You're considered 100%, but not because then there's TDIU, or you're at 100%, but you're not at the permanent and total, and you're not at the TDIU. So that's the one where you're basically at 100%, but you still are going to be reevaluated at the point, or it may fall under the time period of basically like if you have a surgery and you will have a time period where you will be 100% and getting paid at that rate. That might be what they mentioned in there. As you can see, a little quick note: it has $6,000 in exemption. Paraplegics get a isn't it paraplegic? I guess yeah, paraplegics. Gets a $50,000 exemption. So if you lost a limb, so basically if you are SMC like special monthly compensation and fall into that, that's where you would go. Property tax forms. Here we go. Let's go to veteran exemption revised 2022. So that's just a form. Paper business form a homestead property tax exemption. So these are just the forms. So if you are a deceased spouse, you can get that. For surviving spouses, parents, or minor children. So that one encompasses that. For the veteran exemption with the municipal assessor. So limited exemption, but it doesn't say what. Okay. The Cooperative Housing Corporation is eligible for the following exemption amount. Post World War One, you get $6,000 for World War One. Let's say that again. World War One. That was over 100 years ago. And they say they revised it in 2022. So like just this is the stuff I like to look at and I like people to pay attention to that people don't realize. Look at what it's saying. These are the recognized war periods. It stops there. It stops on January 31st of 1990. We were just in Afghanistan for 20 years, but this just got updated in 2022. So that's like I said, this is where it's like politicians and stuff like that, veterans. I think veterans need to start uniting more and start talking about these issues more to get more representation and more stuff spoken about. Um, Maine doesn't have a base that I know of, but it has that airport that everybody flies through. Um, which I guess that's the exemption for us. I guess hey, you get to fly through here. Hey, good luck to you. No, um, but yeah, like I said, this is other, and it just says other recognized service period. So it disregards the past 20 years of war we've been at in this location. Disregards Iraq and Afghanistan. There's no mention to it. Um, a World War One veteran, which there's probably probably I wouldn't be surprised. There's probably a couple still surviving. Um, depending. Well, no, I don't even know if that's even possible. Because the thing is they had to at least be 18 at that time when they joined. World War One was in the what 20s, 20 somethings. Start date of 1914. So that would mean you are 110 years old right now. Not adding the fact that you had to be 18. I don't think there's an 128-year-old survivor of World War One right now among us. If he is, salute to that person. But like I said, this is something that is just like this is post World War One that you have this information for. We are in 2024 now. The last time you updated this, it didn't have that. That's 34 years of some altercation that happened. That it was a wartime, and it's a recognized war period. So that needs some updating because basically you get 6,000, and that's why I guess that's why on the notes it basically says on here it says 6,000 exemption because they know there's no survivors of World War One still around. So it would be 7,000 if not there. So at least we have that. We'll copy this and put this as Maine veteran property tax exemption form. Because that's just a form. It doesn't have the law, but it just basically clarifies that. Served in the armed forces during a recognized war period or other recognized service period. You so doesn't everybody get this one now? A veteran who served on active duty, so you may be eligible for a limited exemption from property tax on real estate or personal property. You qualify for an exemption if you serve and and you will be at least 62 years old on April 1st, or you are receiving a total disability pension from the U.S. government. Okay, that's still crazy. That's still crazy. $6,000 vet, 50,000. So 50,000 for. It's crazy. Give me 1 second. That. Like I said, this is stuff that is we need to make changes to this, y'all. We need to adjust that stuff, and we need to make better criteria for this because this is the paraplegic, no problem, that's fine, but $6,000 and you're not considering other ones because you have to have served in a recognized war period or receive the expeditionary, which I believe I received. You receive that anyway when you go through the military. So, because it was during the time of war, I believe, but they don't recognize that time period. So that's why I say that's interesting. All right, let's go to the state of Maryland. Maryland also has county level exemptions. So this is for permanent and total and temporary disability unemployability. Okay, so Department of Veteran Affairs. Sign up to now receive news and updates from the Maryland Department of Veteran Affairs. That's the first one we have that actually pops up and says that. Remind me later. Okay. Okay, so state property tax exemptions for the state of Maryland. Armed service veterans with a permanent total service connected disability rated 100% by the Veterans Administration may receive an exemption from real property taxes on the dwelling house and surrounding yard. These veterans may also apply at any time and do not have to meet the September 1 filing deadline. Certain unremarried surviving spouses may be eligible for this exemption. Surviving spouses of military personnel killed in the line of duty may apply for an exemption. To learn more, call your local Maryland assessment office to find your local office. And all right, y'all, give me 1 second. I will be back. Like a family tree, part of you, part of me. And if we should separate, go your own, I won't wait. It's like a family tree, part of you, part of me. And if we should separate,